This episode of All Things Business, the podcast, is brought to you by our digital media partner, DFA Law. DFA Law, providers of expert and dedicated legal advice to businesses and families since 1838. DFA Law, the law firm for life.
Frazer,
Ben,
how are you?
very well, mate. You?
Yeah, top button undone today.
Undone today. It's a little bit warmer here, if I'm honest.
Yeah?
So,
Is that because of the company that we've got?
It's the temperature has gone up a little bit, shall we say? Yeah, I'd say our best looking guests.
Yeah,
probably
by
so. I
far.
think that's fair to say. Yeah,
And it's International Women's Day today.
correct. Yeah, big day of celebration.
Definitely. So who better than two very inspirational, powerful businesswomen, Emily and Nikki. Welcome.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us.
You're most welcome. For those that are listening or watching that perhaps don't know your business, just give us a brief intro to them about your company.
Okay, so we are More Recruitment Group. Started off with More Driver Solutions 16 years ago. We've just had our 16th anniversary. Basically, we are driving recruiters through and through. We recruit lorry drivers for the whole of Northampton and surrounding areas. And we've recently diversed into recruitment, but perms for logistics, transport, and that sector.
So yeah, basically we've put them all together and we are More Recruitment Group. There isn't really a lot more to say. We're really passionate about what we do. We love working with our drivers. We love working with our team, and we're really passionate about making sure that our drivers are compliant. We tick all the boxes, and basically we add benefit to our customers. And it's just spiraled into perm recruitment because it goes hand in hand in the logistics sector.
I've got to know you two really well over the last sort of 18 months, and it's fair to say that you two are very, excuse the pun, very driven. You know what you want, very successful as well. And I've got a lot of admiration for you. When it comes to days like today, International Women's Day, what's your take on it?
I think it's something that we should celebrate. I think Nikki and I went into business as sort of 22 and 23-year-olds, I think we were at the time. And we have spent a lot of time fighting against the prejudice of two young women, A, being business owners, but B, working in a industry that, to be honest, is predominantly
Male-dominated.
So we've had to fight against that a lot to be listened to be respected.
Yeah.
And I think it's made us really, really want to know the ins and outs of our business and be the best at it, because we've never wanted to be in a situation where we're looked down upon because we're women.
Yeah.
And that was so common in the first place. We were consistently asked who was backing us.
Although, would you say that it's more of a look back to notice that? Because at the time,
Yeah.
I don't think we realised.
No, now I think it's like you look back at it and think, wow,
Yeah,
we had so many brick walls that we didn't realise we were
absolutely.
up against.
Yeah.
Because you're female.
I think because we were young females
Yeah.
as
Yeah,
well.
young and female.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the biggest change that you've seen? Because obviously, when you're in it, you don't see it, but when you're able to look back and reflect on it. But if you rewind 16 years ago to now, 2024, what's the biggest difference that you've noticed?
There are a lot more women in logistics.
Yeah. Age demographic as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
I think there's a lot of young people coming into the business. There's a lot more now of sort of business owners that are in their late 20s, early 30s. When we first started, it was really, there was a real hierarchy and sort of almost the old boys club. That is beginning to change a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an element of, unfortunately, that in different pockets of business communities,
Yeah.
even to this day. What led you to starting up on your own? Or were you destined to do it when you left school, or?
I think we were probably destined not to be bossed around. I think that's the long and short of it.
Yeah.
Em and I worked very well together when we worked for somebody, and actually we really enjoyed our time there. It was not about necessarily getting away from them. It was just about doing it for ourselves. We had maybe 2 or 3 different offers on the table.
Yeah.
And when things come in from different directions, and I often say this to people about imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
if you just sit back and if you hear the same thing from 2 or 3 different people that are in different groups, you know, different sort of social circles, different business circles, you've got to pay attention to what they're saying. And for 2 or 3 people, 3 people to single us out
Yeah.
and say, look, we want to go into business with you at that age, we were like, we need to listen now.
Yeah, and like Nikki said, we were incredibly happy where we were. Our bosses were fantastic. We were really enjoying ourselves. We were earning good money. But actually, thinking back, we were probably always reasonably unemployable because we did what we liked.
Yeah.
You know, if we wanted to turn up at 9:30 because we'd been on call and the phones had been busy. We were on the phones, we were still working.
Yeah.
That's what we do. And I remember when I was sitting us down one day and being like, please, can you get Nikki here on time? I was like, good luck. But in the same turn, they'd be like, oh, you sit in that office and do sales calls. And I'd be like, but I don't want to sit in there and do sales calls. I want to sit in there and work the plan.
Yeah.
So we couldn't be conformed as
We
such.
used to have a discussion, didn't we? And then we'd be like, right, okay, we're going to the boss, and we'd knock on the door and he'd kind of sit back.
Oh no, here
We'd
we
be
go.
like, right, we're sitting down and talking to you. So yeah, I think.
And that's the two of you going in, knocking on the door and going in together
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
full force.
I mean, there were two male bosses. I mean, we got on with them at the time absolutely fantastically. But and they listened to our opinion, to be fair. But yeah, we probably weren't easy to employ.
So, if there is a young lady watching this now, or young ladies that have got aspirations to get into business, and they perhaps are lacking that little bit of confidence because it's still a big, scary world with different challenges now to what they were 16 years ago, what would be the advice you'd give them?
Don't do it. No, all joking aside, you can do anything you want to do. Just make sure you have a good support network behind you. Friends, family, make sure you check out the area you want to go into. And it's not easy.
Get a good business partner. Number one. No, like Em said, but also I think we've realised again over the years that we've not done it necessarily the traditional way. So we didn't learn all about we kind of learned all about our trade, but we didn't learn about business. So we didn't see lots of different businesses and how they work. We've learned that along the way.
Yeah.
So there are different ways. It doesn't matter. You can't be, a lot of people probably wouldn't have the guts, I guess, at 22 to think, right, I can take it on completely, because it is a lot to take on, the finance for number one, especially in our industry, because we're payrolling before we get the money back in. So we've always had a lot of risk and a lot of responsibility, which a lot of people would struggle to handle, I guess. But you can go in at 25 and learn as you go, as long as you know your trade, or you can go in at 40 once you know the business side of things. So there's lots of different ways of doing it.
If you could change that, and it's interesting what you said about the finance, because a recent guest on the podcast, Richard Gordon from Greedy Gordon, he said exactly the same thing. When he went into business, it's great. He had this idea, but he didn't have an understanding of the finance. Yeah. But rewind 16 years ago, would you make the same decision you made then to go into business without knowing about the other parts that you didn't know about?
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've learned along the way. We've had to learn the hard way sometimes, but it's made us grow stronger. And actually, I think if we'd known the risks that lay ahead, and we're doing it now, you'd be like, oh, but you might lose your house, you might go bankrupt. I remember Nikki and I being like, okay, we've both got mortgages, so if this goes wrong, my daughter was probably 5, I think at the time. We were like, it'll be fine because we'll just live together. We'll lose one house first, then we'll live together. And it was like, but it'd be okay because if it goes completely wrong, we'll just be able to start again. And that was a genuine conversation we had.
Yeah.
And it was like, but we're young enough, if it goes wrong and we end up going bankrupt, by 32, we'll be able to start again.
Yeah.
I love that. I told my wife, I said, listen, I want to set up on my own, but we've got to sell the family home. So we'll go into rented. It will only be for a year, maybe 2 at the most. And fast forward 7 years, we're not back on the property ladder yet, but we will be this year.
Yeah.
And I've been in similar situations to that, and I wouldn't change it either.
No.
There's just something ingrained in you, isn't there?
Absolutely.
That just makes it happen. One thing that's you two I love spending time with you, right? And one thing I think's great, because you're both very outgoing and salesy people, but your industry is very heavily regulated and process driven.
Yes.
And you guys are very on top of that. That obviously changed a lot over the last 16 years.
Hugely.
Yeah. Is that how do you deal with that? Because I'm in sales, I struggle with detail sometimes.
A little bit.
All right, mate. You're not exactly Mr. Detail, but if our industry, was as heavily regulated like that and process driven, that might be a game changer for me, because I wouldn't. How did you deal with that?
We've been really passionate about always being on top of things and providing the best service. So everything that's come in, we try and be ahead of the game. We try and look to see how we can make it easier for our drivers, for our customers, how we can make them as compliant as possible. We look into the new systems. We look into the new ways of doing things. We do toolbox talks for our drivers. There's so many things that we've tried to be ahead of the game. And it stems back from probably about, I don't know, it's probably about 5 or 6 years ago. There was an agency that everyone used and didn't like. And we'd be like, oh, how do we become that agency? Because people like us, but they won't stop using them because there's an element that they do that other people don't do. So we were like, right, how do we get better? So we just started looking at all of that. It was the same with the compliance. How do we do better than everyone else?
Yeah. And actually going back to what Fraser asked earlier about would we do it now if we knew what we knew, the only thing I think that would stop us is all of the compliance.
Yeah.
So when we started, because there was less, it was quite an easy setup in theory, but everything started changing, didn't it, over the years? So we were there, we were probably working for somebody when they changed from analog to digitaco.
Yeah, we were.
But CPCs have come in, different tax laws have come in. There's so much that's happened over the 16 years, but luckily we've taken each one and run with it each time.
Yeah.
But to try and set up now, it would be a massive challenge.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you haven't got the fear of it because you didn't know it.
Yes.
So then you had no choice but to overcome it. And
Yep.
how driven that you both are,
Yeah.
it wasn't going to beat you, was it?
No.
It didn't have a choice.
No.
and I
You were going to figure it out and you were going to exceed.
Yeah, and I think it stems back again to going into business as young women and always having to totally understand what we were talking about and be totally confident about it. Because when we were put in a situation, we needed to know it inside out. And actually better than the person we were talking to.
Absolutely, to be taken seriously.
Yeah, we'd often be not taken seriously. So we have always really delved into the new laws, new changes, anything like that. So we understand it more than anyone else.
Yeah, I think we've had the odd comment like, "Oh, you actually know what you're talking about." We've got. We should write a book of the comments. To be
We've
fair.
had some terrible ones.
How do you not flip the table over and literally go for their throat when somebody says that?
I've had a
'Cause
couple.
We take it in turns. One of us
Okay.
has a half paddy and the other one sits there very calmly, and then the other time it's the other way round.
Yeah,
Because it is for me. I've obviously never really experienced it, but I wouldn't know how I'd react in that situation.
It's hard.
I know how you'd react.
Yeah,
And it's just sad that happened.
yeah, it is.
It is
and
sad.
And I don't know if this is my naivety as well, but like the gender pay gap, which I think is more common probably in the city and in certain industries.
yes.
But my brain isn't processed to go, that person's a female, therefore she should be paid £5,000 less because she's female.
Yeah.
That does happen in society, and I struggle with that. I don't know why that is still happening. But would you say that the world of business is in a better position now than it was, say, 10 years ago in terms of any gender?
Equality in the work.
Yeah.
We don't have that issue in our workplace. I
No.
mean, predominantly for a long time, our office was women. For a long time.
But in terms of the industry that you're in,
I would say not, but again, it's still pretty male dominated. I don't think many women in transport would accept the fact that they weren't on a parity. All of our drivers are treated the same regardless. So regardless of sex, race, anything. So yeah, it's all encompassing, isn't it?
Yeah.
For us, they're just it's a job. It's
we-
what you fulfill to get paid for it.
We don't come up against it really in anything we're doing because, like Nikki said, all our drivers are paid the same. Within our office, we don't have if you're on a level, that's the level you're paid at.
couple last questions, if I may, and then we're going to have a little bit of fun. What's been the worst period over that 16 years that you can maybe share with us? Has it been? I think.
To pick one.
It's got to be the most stressful. It's got to be finance when a customer goes bust on you.
Yeah. It's always been finance related.
Yeah.
'Cause- yeah.
The only other thing I would say is possibly a lot of these big clients tend to go to a panel. So when you've supplied them for years and had a great relationship, it all happens up above and there's nothing you can do about it and it comes from nowhere. That's never very nice.
Because it's the relationships
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah, the change in
I
relationship.
will one lesson, it's massive, I think, for both of us, and we kind of remind each other of it a lot of the time, is don't sweat the small stuff. The amount of times we have sat and worried about something so simple, and the next day something massive has bit us both in the arse.
There's the headline, Arthur. Don't sweat the small stuff. I like that.
We could almost stop coming up with them because people keep saying it for us. But
You're
it is.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
And on the flip side, then, because I know I sometimes I think you're sisters as well, and I'm quite envious of them because they're great in business together. They party together. They go on holiday together.
We're not
We're
married.
nodding
though.
at me like that.
No, I was just laughing that we will be away in the same place at the same time this year, but it's not a holiday, is it?
Where?
On Santorini.
Oh yeah, but that's a wedding.
It's very romantic.
It was not our wedding.
It's not our wedding, but yeah, we'll be at the same
Not
wedding.
yet, 2025.
Yeah. And Fraser's not coming to the stag do because he's under the thumb. But forget that.
Makes it up as he goes
What?
along.
Oh, so why aren't you coming to stag do?
Don't want to come.
Okay.
Harsh.
Yeah, but he'll go to the
Do you want
wedding.
to have fun?
No, I have fun every day of my life. I don't. No, it's not about a stag do. It's about International Women's Day.
Hang on. I want to get the flip side of it. So, holidays has been a big thing for you both as well. Was there a moment where you both, I don't know when it was, where you just cheersed and went, I'm so glad that we're in business together, or was there a defining moment where you've just gone, I love you? Do you know what I mean?
Usually after several bottles of champagne, we do that.
And I know you can sink champagne as well, but was there a defining moment, a contract win, or at the end of a particular year or moment where you've gone? It could have been coming out of a bit of a shitstorm, and you've gone, do you know what? There's been that. There's
been loads of defining moments. COVID was a really interesting period for everyone. It went dead quiet, and it was just a case of me and Nikki sat in the office, and then suddenly it went crazy busy, and
of course drivers would have still been required throughout the pandemic, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and people were shielding, people were ill, people were spending within the UK, so it was a crazy probably 18 months or so. Yeah. It literally went from me and Nikki being sat downstairs in the glass box, just me and her, to having everyone back in the office, and me starting work at 7 a.m, Nikki working till 11, 12 o'clock at night. Kind of did the flip side, but that was a period where we were like, wow,
we worked really well together, didn't we? And the whole team.
The team were fantastic.
Yeah, we drove it from both sides of the day.
Yeah,
I'm not the early starter.
No, I am. And I'm definitely not the late night one.
It's one of those, but you look back to COVID, and I've said this a few times, you said this 16 years ago, but when you were in the middle of COVID, you couldn't see the way out of it. But if you go back to it now, the lessons that you learn, how the business has changed, how it evolved, the tempo of it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it was a good thing, but it was a reset button that's changed how everybody does business.
Yeah, it's changed the logistics industry a lot as well, hasn't it?
Oh, hugely. Before COVID, it was very much, well, that's how it's done. We like to challenge. Why? Why is it always done that way? Why can't you change it? Well, it's just the way it is. Whereas that now, there's not so much weekend work. People aren't working 24/7. People are doing their orders in advance.
Yeah.
We had clients that were getting orders up until 5 o'clock at night to be delivered the next day, nationwide. And they were picking it throughout the night, and that's changed.
I think it brought transport and logistics to the forefront as well, didn't it?
Yeah.
You know, they were sort of classed as...
I think I would say that alongside education.
Yeah.
I think the pandemic, as a country, as society, we perhaps didn't appreciate how reliant we are as consumers, but also businesses, on the transport and logistics sector. And we also didn't appreciate how good the teaching and non-teaching staff are within our schools.
Yeah,
because homeschooling is bloody hard work with 2 or 3 kids, let alone...
And the poor parents trying to do that.
I know.
If you don't evolve, you become extinct, right? And that's what they did. And you
100%.
look back at the NHS, that hasn't evolved, and it's
struggling.
Still shit.
It's struggling from the overload that they had.
Correct.
It's just made it worse, hasn't it?
I wanted to end on a high, Fraser.
We're going to end on a high just now.
God.
How do we bridge the gap on the a male-dominated industry in logistics? If there's a young lady, middle-aged lady, whichever age they are out there, why should they get involved in logistics? What can they do?
Why not? For a start. It's an interesting industry. It actually is. There's a lot of changes.
Yeah. It's fast-paced.
Yeah. It's like any industry. Why'd you get into any of it? I don't have a particular...
Yeah.
And I suppose as well, with
benefit
the transport logistics sector, it doesn't matter if you're in HR, administration, business development, PR. There's going to be a role for you within that sector, isn't there?
Yeah, I don't think people quite realise it's how huge it is.
So
as
much
a
more than
business.
just driving a lorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not just a lorry driver, transport administrator, transport clerk, somebody washing the trucks.
Yeah,
these
a
operations
business.
are huge. And I think as well, in terms of women coming in, unfortunately with the driving side, we're always going to have the issue with the hours. And there's not really an awful lot that can be done about that, other than, I guess, part-time work encourages employers to do job shares, so to speak. But it's all about, really, I guess, with the work at home, you might find that women can come into it because there are men working from home now. And that's, again, it's just old tradition, isn't it? It's just changing that.
Work-life balance is so important to every household.
And that's the social norm. That's not just transport.
Although, again, going back to Richard Gordon, in hospitality, again, chefs typically would have very long working weeks, but they introduce
4 day week, 3 days off, 1 weekend off, 1 day of the weekend off a week.
That's good.
To give them that balance into it.
Yeah, because that's another industry that's really struggled.
And
hugely.
Do you know Joe Buckley at the Tollymarsh Arms?
Yeah.
They've implemented something similar as well, and they actually have days where they shut down.
Yep.
They close just so the staff can either have a training day and then a bit of a social, but they close the doors. And I think that's pretty impressive.
It is.
And it's a great way for them, both those businesses, retaining their staff as well, which is I would imagine, like transport, highly difficult to maintain staff of that level as well.
Yeah, definitely. And because there's so many options in the area, people can just walk out of one job and into the next. But as we've done all the cost exercises about just retraining and looking after who you've got, there's much more benefit to that than letting them go somewhere else. It's the same with recruitment.
And I love hearing recruitment agents say that, how to retain your staff.
We've got excellent
and
retention.
train them, because then you keep the best talent.
Yeah.
And when the new talent does arrive, they're being trained by the best in the business. I love that.
Yeah, Debbie has worked for us for I think 13 years this year. Billy is on his 10th year. I think Jade's on her 7th year. I don't think other than people that we've recruited more recently because the team have expanded, most of them have been with us
The
a
spine,
long
the
time.
core.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
Right, ladies, thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
I hope our
Thank you.
audience and listeners have enjoyed that, because on a day like today, women in business should definitely be celebrated. And thanks for giving up your time. Right, Arthur, chuck me, for those that are watching, if I show you this, you're probably going to have an idea of what's coming next. Which camera shall I throw this onto, Arthur? Okay, here we go. Right, so for regular listeners or watchers, we're going to have a game of Mrs. and Mrs.
Yeah, I know. It's should we just kick straight off and go?
Yeah.
So the rules of the game: whoever the answer is to the question, show your paddle to camera number 1, and then we'll have a little roundup at the end. It's not competitive though, but whoever wins will
Still a game.
Still a game.
Right, question number 1: who makes most of the decisions? aka, where's the trousers?
50-50 on that one.
That is really difficult.
The good news is it gets worse after these questions.
Okay, well, I guess
1, 2, 3.
The worst thing is I'm like, which?
Yeah, no.
Question number 2: who is most likely to get lost on their way to a client meeting? Oh, brilliant! Didn't even get a countdown. I love that.
Question number 3: who is the better driver?
Who?
More sensible driver.
It's more sensible. Yeah.
Not better. Yeah, more cautious.
Who is the best networker? Brilliant.
Very good.
Oh, yeah.
Then better than what me and you did.
We might have to get some more questions in a minute.
Whose desk is the cleanest? Arthur, this is...
I know. We might have to put something in the
All
filler.
right, we'll mix it up in a minute. I'll answer wrong for you.
This one,
This one could divide opinion.
Okay.
yeah,
We're going to have a fight.
possibly.
No, well-
possibly. Not you and I, but you two mine. Whose dog is the cutest?
Oh, goodness.
Oh.
Yours are cute.
Tomo's cute too when he's on his best behaviour.
This will be an interesting one. Who's the biggest party animal?
Oh, blimey. If we had to choose one, but that's just because of the finish times.
Yeah, I like to go to bed
Emily
at
likes-
around 5 a.m. Nicky
Em will
could
do
go,
like
keep going.
Em will do 3 Jaeger bombs and then go, right, I'm going to bed. And I'm like, I'm wired on that Red Bull that you've just drank.
I'm fast asleep. I've
It's
fallen
a
asleep at the
nightcap.
table before.
So, a lot of people know, or who do know that you were both massively into your fitness. Who is the fittest?
Well, it depends though on what on. But
Oh, good. You matched. I don't know. There's a great deal to split them there.
I
was
know.
there?
I
Yeah,
think
that
that's-
it depends, like you said, on.
Arthur will tot
Yeah,
it up,
it's
but I think
difficult,
that's.
that
I think that's. They've
It
definitely
might be a
outdone me and
draw.
you.
I'll tell you what I like, and I did like one of Connor's questions that he asked, which did, which celebrity... Oh, we need to write that down so that won't work. I like the which celebrity do they most think that they look like?
I don't know any celebrities. That won't be any good for anyone.
Okay, we'll scrap that one then.
Right, we're going to end this like we do with all of our podcasts. Dinner for 4 on Saturday. Who are you going to invite, past or present? Come on.
Friends and family.
Friends and family.
100%.
Always.
Always.
That's cute, isn't it?
Yeah,
I
it
don't really
is,
know how to
yeah.
follow up with that. I'd invite lots of dead people.
But they'd still have to be dead because she wouldn't want to.
I wouldn't want to talk
The
to
network
them.
with them.
Brilliant. What an end.
Right, ladies, thank you ever so much. I've really enjoyed this.
Thank you for
and I'm
having us.
sure that the viewers have as well. So thank you.
Thank
Ladies.
you.